Last night, our Verified team took you inside classrooms around the U.S. to hear from teachers who say they are hanging on by a thread.
Tonight in part 2 of our Verify in Focus special, we look at what's being done to get more teachers in the classroom.
A crisis is growing in America's K-12 schools.
We're losing teachers faster than we can get new ones in.
According to the data from the National Center for Education Statistics, the percent of college grads earning a bachelor's degree in education is roughly half of what it was in 1970, dropping from more than 170,000 to less than 90,000 in 2019. Coupled with high rates of early retirement and stress-induced career changes, the teacher pool is drying up.
I mean, it's a crisis, in my opinion. It's not going to get better without taking some intentional steps to make it better.
So who's going to teach America's children? That question has school districts, lawmakers, universities, and educational organizations scrambling to find answers before it's too late. One strategy, at least at the state level, has been
lowering standards and lowering requirements for entry into teaching.
That's Heather Pesky, president of the National Council on Teacher Quality. In addition to having a bachelor's degree, most states used to require teachers to pass a teaching certification exam before being allowed to teach. But since 2020, Pesky says at least 12 states have removed or lowered the requirements for teachers to get that certification. Meaning in places like Alabama and Missouri, even if teaching candidates don't pass the state exam, they could still be given a license to teach. A change that Tanya Chestnut, a board member for Alabama State Board of Education, justified by saying, "When you're in a crisis, you tend to do things you probably would not ordinarily do. I think this will definitely bring some relief without compromising the quality of education." High school English teacher Violeta Duran and middle school instructional coach Evan Shin aren't as optimistic. They worry lowering standards will result in students getting an underqualified teacher.
I think there is a danger in that.
We are just putting people in classrooms that are not credentialed or who are not ready to be in the classroom. But because of the fact that we're looking for a warm body, we are saying like, oh, okay, well, good enough.
But Pesky says it's not enough.
This will result in a less effective teacher workforce. And that's the opposite of what our students need, particularly now on the heels of this pandemic.
University of Pennsylvania professor Richard Ingersoll has studied teachers and their working conditions for more than 20 years. He says these desperate measures of lowering standards to teach will only make more teachers leave the profession.
Generally, the less prepared people, the emergency and temporary licenses, for instance, that are issued, those people quit at higher rates.
His research already showed that nearly half of teachers with proper training leave the profession within the first 5 years. Nonprofit organizations are also scrambling to find solutions to the teacher shortage crisis. Transcend is a nonprofit that works with schools to test innovative ways to help teachers enter and stay in the profession. They say they've seen success elevating people from non-teaching roles, like coaches and parents, into teaching roles for the short term to ease the burden on existing teachers. Steve Carlin, a former superintendent in the rural Garden City School District in southwest Kansas, had a similar idea 15 years ago. Back then, Carlin says his open teaching positions were mostly in high school math and science classes. To fill those roles, he'd take elementary school teacher candidates that he didn't have classrooms for and pay for their training and then put them in those high school classrooms. And that worked until 2016. But then the teaching shortages became so problematic that
we haven't been able to utilize that strategy because we can't even fill all of our elementary classrooms.
So Carlin dipped into his pool of substitute teachers to fill those roles. But now
the pool is completely dry.
While schools are trying to find ways to fill their vacancies, the federal government is trying to address teacher shortages with money.
Let's give public school teachers a raise.
2 proposals in Congress aim to do just that. The Pay Teachers Act, introduced by Senator Bernie Sanders in March, and the American Teacher Act, introduced by Representative Frederica Wilson in the House in February. If passed, they would set a minimum starting salary of $60,000 for all U.S. public school teachers, a big jump from the national average starting salary of $41,770 in the 2020 to 2021 school year. Neither bill has been voted on, but bipartisan support for both is growing. As of April 2023, the Senate bill is backed by 7 co-sponsors and has the support of more than 50 major education organizations, while the House bill has more than 50 co-sponsors. There's also money for teachers baked into legislation passed during the pandemic. In March 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act allocated $130 billion to K-12 schools. The White House says schools can use that money to invest in teacher pipeline programs, increase teacher salaries, and hire more teachers. The U.S. Departments of Education and Labor issued a joint statement to state lawmakers and administrators, urging them to use this relief money to specifically increase pay for teachers. But Duran says that isn't happening at her school. She says schools are hesitant to spend the money on long-term investments because they worry the aid will eventually run out, leaving schools with salaries they can't afford to pay. But money doesn't have to come from the federal government or go to the schools directly. The University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Education is using private funding from alumni and supporters to incentivize more people to become teachers.
We're saying to any student who wants to come into any of our 15 different teacher education programs that we will pay the cost of their tuition, their testing fees, and their licensing fees.
She says in exchange, the students must pledge to teach in Wisconsin public schools for 3 to 4 years. The $25 million privately funded program, launched in August of 2020, also offers mentorship and professional development support for alums. Support from a program that former teacher Sarah Coys wishes she had during the early years of her teaching.
I think there's a lot of support for first-year teachers. And I think people think, oh, after your second or third year, you're good to go, you're a pro. But I think that those supports need to stay in place.
Duran, who teaches in Southern California, says she'd like to see Wisconsin's Pledge program be adopted by more schools.
I see it as a positive, like any program that can do that. I mean, it would be great if, UCLA could do that or USC.
So what do current teachers think will help inspire others to join this career path? For a long time, high school teacher Joaquin Rodriguez says passion alone was what sparked that interest. But now,
when you have that burnout and that fatigue, that passion piece is the first thing to go.
Educators like Rodriguez, Shin, and Duran say they're still hanging on. And when they ask themselves why they're still doing this,
at the end of the day, it's the students. There's an energy that they bring that is unmatched. Even just showing care and concern from students sometimes, that is enough to kind of be like, okay, we're going to be okay.